Rain slams against the windows of the Gilded Swan, a restaurant so polished it looks like it's carved out of light itself. Inside, champagne glasses clink, forks scrape porcelain, and laughter rolls through the room like a song for the wealthy. And there, in the corner, a young woman in a waitress uniform stands perfectly still. Her name is Clara Beaumont, though nobody here knows that. To them, she's just Clara Blake, the new girl. Her ponytail is too neat, her eyes too sharp for someone bussing tables. And when she moves, there's grace in her steps she didn't learn here. Behind the swinging kitchen door, a dishwasher hums like thunder. Steam clouds the small window, and through it, Clara sees him. Eli Hart, rolled up sleeves, arms scarred from work. That kind of quiet strength that doesn't ask to be noticed. But you notice anyway. She watches him longer than she should, until a voice cuts through the air. Blake. You gonna stand there all night? Chef Romano, thick accent. Thicker ego, Clara jolts. Yes, chef. She grabs a tray, forces a smile, and weaves between tables lit by chandeliers that probably cost more than her apartment. If these people knew who she really was, if they saw her dress the way she used to dress, they'd bow, they'd whisper, because she's not just another waitress, she's the heir to Beaumont Holdings, a billion-dollar empire of luxury hotels and quiet corruption. But she doesn't want that life anymore, not after what she heard 2 weeks ago. Her father, Charles Beaumont, talking in his office, thinking she wasn't listening. They'll never trace it to us, he said. Those small-town factories were dying anyway, factories that kept families alive, factories like the one that belonged to Eli's family. That night, she packed a single suitcase and disappeared. Now, she's here, serving the kind of people she used to dine with, pretending to be one of the invisible, but pretending doesn't erase guilt. As she's clearing a table, her tray slips. Crash. Champagne spills, glittering gold against a white silk suit. The man stands instantly, older, arrogant, money dripping off every word. Do you have any idea what this cost, you stupid girl? I'm so sorry, sir. Sorry doesn't pay for silk. He snaps, voice slicing through the room. Heads turn, whispers rise, and then from the kitchen, Eli appears. Hey, he says calmly. It was an accident. I'll cover it. The man glares. You're a dishwasher. Eli steps closer. No fear, just that quiet defiance in his eyes. Yeah, got a problem with that? The customer looks ready to explode, but something in Eli's stare makes him back down. He mutters something under his breath, throws a few bills on the table and storms out. The whole restaurant exhales. Clara kneels to clean the mess. Hands trembling, Eli crouches beside her, passing a towel. You okay? She nods, trying to smile. Don't let them get to you, he says. People like that, and they think they own the world. But they don't. His words hit harder than he knows, because her family does own the world. She wants to tell. Him wants to confess, right? There. But the words freeze in her throat. Later. That night, after the last guest leaves, after the chairs are stacked, and the kitchen falls silent, Clara steps outside. Rain again, it's always raining lately. She stands beneath the awning, watching droplets dance in the puddles, and then, a soft flick of sound. A lighter. Eli steps beside her, a cigarette glowing between his fingers. You're still here, he says. Couldn't sleep. He nods. Exhales smoke into the night. You're not like the others. She looks up. What makes you say that? You listen. Most people here, they're just trying to make it through the day. You're searching for something. His voice is rough. But there's something kind in it. She holds his gaze. Maybe I am. He flicks away the cigarette. Straightens, then I hope you find it, he says, and starts to walk away. Raindrops catch the street lights, and she watches him fade into the mist, Only then does she whisper, "So do I." Days turned into weeks, and the restaurant, for all its noise, started to feel like a kind of silence. Mornings were exhaustion. Evenings a blur of plates and orders. Nights, heavy with thoughts she couldn't turn off. Clara moved through it like a ghost in borrowed clothes. But Eli had a way of grounding the noise. He'd show up early, fix the broken coffee machine, hum old songs while stacking trays. He worked like every second mattered, and somehow still found time to help everyone else. One night, Clara found him sitting behind the restaurant, alone on a crate, eating what looked like cold pasta from a paper bowl. She hesitated, then walked over. "Mind if I sit?" He looked up, eyes half tired, half surprised. Not much to share. She sat anyway, pulled half her sandwich from her pocket and handed it to him. "Now there is." He stared for a moment, then smiled, quietly, genuinely. "You really don't belong here." Her stomach tightened. "What makes you say that?" "Your hands," he said. "They're too soft. Your voice too careful. You sound like someone who's had choices." Clara laughed too quickly. "Maybe I used to." He tilted his head. "Used to?" She looked away. "We all have a past." He studied her for a second, then let it go. Didn't press. Didn't pry. And somehow that made her trust him more than anyone she'd ever known. But guilt was a living thing inside her because she knew who she was. She knew what her last name meant, and she knew what it had done to him, even if he didn't. She remembered reading about it. Hart Manufacturing. A small-town factory bought out and shut down after a corporate takeover. Her father's move. Families lost everything. Eli's family among them. And here he was, washing dishes in a city that didn't care. He used to build things with his hands. Clara lay awake that night, staring at the cracked ceiling of her tiny apartment. Her throat ached with things she couldn't say. She wanted to tell him the truth, but the truth would destroy everything, so she stayed quiet, and the silence grew heavier. The next week, the city hit a heat wave. Sweat and tension filled the kitchen. Clara caught Eli wincing while carrying a crate. "You okay?" "Yeah," he grunted, shifting it to his other arm. "You've been working extra shifts, haven't you?" He smirked. "What gave it away?" "The exhaustion. The part where you nearly fell asleep standing up." He chuckled, shaking his head. "Rent doesn't care if you're tired." She frowned. "You could do something else, you know." "You're smart." Eli's smile faded. "You think I haven't tried?" He dropped the crate with a dull thud. "Every job interview, they look at my address, my last name, my clothes. Doors don't open for people like me." Clara's voice softened. "Maybe someday they will." He gave her that half smile again. "Someday never comes." Those words lingered long after he walked away, because she knew he was right. The world was built for people like her, not for people like him. And that realization cut deeper than anything her father had ever said. That night, she walked home alone under the orange streetlights, the city reflecting off rain puddles like broken glass. She passed shop windows full of clothes she used to own and wondered how something as small as a uniform could change everything. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a name she hadn't seen in weeks. "Father." She stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. Then she turned. It often kept walking, because the girl who used to answer that call was gone. Later that week, Eli found her staring at the clock long after closing. "You waiting for something?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Maybe waiting to feel like I belong somewhere." He leaned on the counter. "You belong here more than most. You actually care." She laughed softly. "That's not much." "It's everything," he said, and in that quiet moment, as the kitchen lights flickered and the hum of the city faded, something changed. The space between them wasn't just silence anymore. It was understanding. Fragile thread neither of them dared to name. But the universe doesn't stay kind for long, because secrets, no matter how deep you bury them, always find their way to the surface. Word of the Beaumont charity gala spread through the restaurant like perfume. Every guest who came in mentioned it. Every server dreamed of the tips that night might bring. Clara just tried to breathe. Through the nausea, the name Beaumont was everywhere. Again, in the newspapers, on the lips of people she worked beside, dripping with admiration and envy. They had no idea the heiress they were talking about was standing right there, tying her apron and pretending to take orders. That night, as she polished wine glasses, she overheard Chef Romano talking near the walk-in. "They say the Beaumont girl ran away," he muttered to a supplier. "Some scandal in the family, I bet. Those rich kids never grateful." Clara's hand froze on the glass stem. Her reflection in the mirror wavered. Eli noticed. He stepped closer, his voice low. "You okay?" She blinked, forcing her smile. "Yeah, just tired." He didn't look convinced. But he didn't press. He never did. After closing, he offered to walk her home. The city glowed under the streetlights, slick with rain again. "You're quiet tonight," he said. "Just thinking." Dangerous habit, she smiled faintly. "You don't do much of it?" "Thinking." He grinned. "Only when I can afford to." They walked in silence after that, footsteps echoing on the wet pavement. And just when she thought the night had settled, he said, "You know, sometimes I think you're carrying the weight of a whole world on your back." Her breath caught. "Maybe I am." He gave her a look, gentle, curious, but didn't ask more. That restraint, that quiet understanding, was exactly what made it hurt, because the truth was clawing at her from the inside. 2 days later, she couldn't stand it anymore. She left the restaurant early, took a train out of the city, and found herself standing before tall iron gates she hadn't seen in months. The Beaumont estate loomed behind them. Cold, immaculate, the kind of place that smelled of money and absence. Security hesitated when she appeared, hair tied back, uniform wrinkled, shoes wet from rain. But her face, those sharp Beaumont eyes, gave her away. Inside, the halls were silent except for the echo of her steps. Every painting, every chandelier, seemed to stare at her like ghosts of the life she'd thrown away. Her father was in his office, staring out over the manicured gardens when she walked in. He turned, stunned. "Clara, my God, where have you been?" She swallowed hard. Working. He almost laughed. "You disappear for weeks and you tell me you're working?" "I needed to see what it felt like to earn something," she said. "To see what your choices did to people." His expression hardened. "You don't understand business." "No," she said quietly. "I understand consequences." He moved closer, lowering his voice. "You think the world is fair? You think sentiment keeps companies alive? I built this family's name. I kept you safe." "Safe?" she whispered. "You built an empire out of broken lives." He sighed, reached into a drawer, and held up a small velvet box. A necklace shimmered inside, the kind he used to buy to apologize for everything. "Come home, Clara. Forget this nonsense." She looked at it for a long moment, then pushed it gently back toward him. "I can't, not until you make things right." He didn't answer, he just turned away. Jaw tight, she walked out without looking back. The heavy doors shut behind her like a verdict. That night, when she returned to the restaurant, her clothes still smelled faintly of rain and old perfume. She found Eli mopping the floors. "Hey," he said softly. "Rough night?" "You could say that." He tossed her a rag. "Then help me finish this mess." "Misery loves company," she laughed, tired but lighter somehow. And for the first time in weeks, the noise in her head went quiet. They cleaned in silence, shoulder to shoulder. The hum of the refrigerators filled the spaces where words couldn't reach. Outside the window, a black car idled by the curb, its headlights dimmed, the driver's face just visible through the rain, watching. She didn't notice, but someone had found her, and the world she thought she'd escaped was already on its way back for her. It started with whispers. A strange man in a suit came asking questions at the restaurant. He showed a photo, her photo, then slipped a bill into the manager's hand. By the time Clara walked in for her shift, the kitchen felt colder. Romano wouldn't meet her eyes. The servers suddenly stopped talking when she passed. Only Eli looked the same. Tired, sweat on his brow, sleeves rolled up, soap on his hands, he smiled when he saw her. "Hey, you're late," she smiled back, trying to steady her breathing. "Got caught in traffic." He didn't know it yet, but the storm was already breaking right over them. That night, the dining room was full. A private party, champagne flowing. A photographer snapping pictures near the door. Clara carried a tray through the laughter. When she froze, because sitting at the head of the table was her father, and beside him, a man she didn't recognize at first. Then it clicked, the one who'd been watching from the car. He turned, met her eyes and smiled like he'd found something valuable. Her tray shook, a glass tipped, shattered. Every head turned, her father's voice was sharp. "Clara?" The entire room went still. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there in her apron, with wine spilling down her hands. Eli stepped forward from the kitchen, ready to help, but the manager stopped him with a hand on his arm. Her father rose from his chair. "Enough of this. You've embarrassed yourself long enough. Come home." Her throat burned. "I'm not your property," he hissed low enough for only her to hear. "You think this boy cares about you? He'll vanish the second he learns who you are." Eli frowned, hearing the tension but not the words. "What's going on?" She turned toward him, eyes wet, voice shaking. "My name isn't Clara James, it's Clara Beaumont." The room rippled with gasps. Eli's face went blank. He blinked, like trying to process something impossible. "You're Beaumont? As in the Beaumont?" She nodded slowly. "I never meant to lie to you. I just wanted to play waitress for fun," he said, hurt cutting through the disbelief. Her father stepped closer. "See, I told you. He'll never understand your world." "Stop," she said sharply. "You don't get to speak for me anymore." But Eli had already backed away, shaking his head. "I thought you were different, Clara." She reached for him. "Please, just let me explain." He turned and walked toward the kitchen doors. The sound of them swinging shut was louder than the shattered glass on the floor. Her father sighed, exasperated. "You've proven your point. Now come home." Clara looked around the room, the guests whispering, the waitstaff pretending not to stare, and realized she'd never felt smaller in her life. "I already have a home," she said quietly. "You just wouldn't recognize it." She tore off her apron, dropped it on the floor, and walked out into the rain. She didn't know where she was going, she just ran. Down the slick sidewalks, past the neon signs and honking taxis, until her lungs burned and her shoes were soaked through. When she finally stopped, she found herself standing outside the restaurant's back door again. Lights off, everyone gone. The world felt huge and empty. Inside, a faint glow flickered from the kitchen. Eli was still there, mopping the last bit of floor, headphones in, completely unaware that her entire life had just collapsed. She stood in the doorway. Trembling, he looked up. Their eyes met. "Why are you here?" he asked softly. "Because I didn't lie to hurt you," she said. "I lied because for the first time in my life, someone saw me like I was real." He set the mop aside. "Jaw tight. Real people don't hide behind masks, Clara. I wasn't hiding from you. I was hiding with you." He stared at her for a long moment. Rain dripped from her hair onto the tile. Finally, he sighed, looking away. "You should go. You don't belong in this world." She felt something break inside her. Not anger, not even shame, just a quiet, hollow ache. "I thought I didn't belong in his world either." She turned to leave, But before she stepped into the rain, Eli's voice stopped her. "Clara." She turned, his expression softened. "You're soaked." "Wait here," he disappeared into the storage room and came back with his old Dynamo jacket, the one he always wore when the dish pit got cold. He held it out to her. It smelled like soap and coffee and the faintest trace of him. "Take it," he said quietly. "You'll catch a cold." She slipped it on, and for a moment, just a moment, the silence between them felt almost like forgiveness. Neither of them spoke again. She left before dawn, walking home in his jacket, watching the city lights smear like tears across the pavement. Behind her, the restaurant windows went dark, and somewhere deep down, she knew nothing would ever go back to how it was, because the truth was out, and the only thing left was what they'd both decide to do with it. Weeks passed. The city slipped toward winter, gray skies, breath turning to fog, and every cafe playing the same soft piano songs that made her think of him. Clara rented a tiny apartment above a bookstore downtown. No chandeliers, no staff, no security guards following her at a distance. Just the sound of pages turning below, and the smell of rain leaking through old window frames. She took a new job, nothing glamorous. Serving coffee instead of wine, wearing jeans instead of uniforms. But for the first time in her life, every dollar she earned meant something. Her father called once. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The silence between them said everything. And yet, every night when she locked up the cafe, she'd glance at the restaurant across the street, the one where she and Eli had met. Sometimes she saw him through the window, moving fast between sinks, steam curling around him like ghost light. She never went in. He never came out until one night. She was closing up when someone knocked on the glass door. She turned, half expecting a customer who'd forgotten their phone, but it was him, Eli. He looked tired, not from work, but from carrying something heavier than dishes or trays. They stood in the doorway, rain tapping between them. Neither spoke for a long time. "Finally," he said, "I heard you quit the restaurant." "I had to," she said. They didn't want an heiress scrubbing plates next to them. He nodded, hands in his pockets. "Guess I can't blame them. That kind of secret. It changes things, I know." He looked up, his eyes, steady, quiet, searched hers. "Why did you really come here, Clara? Why us?" She exhaled. "Because I was tired of being someone who didn't have to earn anything. I wanted to understand what life felt like when it cost something." He nodded slowly, rain dripping from his hair. "You picked a rough way to learn." "I deserved rough," she said. "You were the only part that didn't hurt." The words hung there. He took a step closer. "I was angry," he said. "Not because you lied, but because you made me feel stupid for believing something real could come out of that world." She swallowed. "Maybe it can." He didn't answer right away, just studied her face, the exhaustion, the honesty that finally showed through. "Do you still have my jacket?" She smiled faintly. "Haven't taken it off much. Figures. I want it back." Her face fell until he added, "Only if you promise to bring it yourself." Something inside her cracked open. A small laugh, a real one, the kind that had been gone for too long. He smiled too. "Coffee sometime? No aprons, no lies." She nodded. "Just us." They stood there under the cafe awning, the rain falling harder now. The city around them humming like a promise. And for the first time since everything fell apart, Clara didn't feel like she was pretending. She didn't feel like an heiress, or a runaway or a disappointment. She just felt human. A few months later, the Beaumont name appeared in the papers again. This time, for different reasons. Beaumont Industries to establish. Worker Relief Fund, the headline read. Sources say the decision came after a private conversation between Clara Beaumont and her father. No quotes, no photos, just a quiet ripple of something that looked a lot like change. At the cafe, Eli set the paper down and smiled to himself. Clara was behind the counter, tying her hair back, rolling her eyes at a stubborn espresso machine. He walked over. "You're famous again," she shrugged. "Do you want your usual or not?" He grinned. "You tell me. I work for tips now, remember?" She laughed, warm, unguarded, and slid the cup toward him. Their fingers brushed, and just like that, the world outside, the wealth, the chaos, the noise, it all faded, because sometimes the richest thing a person can have is a moment that finally feels earned. He took a sip, watching her. "Still pretending to be a waitress?" She smirked. "No, just being one who finally knows who she is." Outside, the rain began to fall again, soft, steady, cleansing, and the city lights blurred through the window like the start of something new.